must be said that there are people in this country who refuse to be silent, who have stood up with courage and conviction and braved the lies and the threats of violence and death by fascist trolls. Today, we and people just like us in cities and towns across the country have overcome fear and uncertainty, recognizing the grave danger that the Trump-Pence regime presents to humanity. And we are standing together to say, this nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. And in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. And we are rallying today to begin a new phase of the struggle, to bring about what millions of people ache to see, an end to a regime that imperils the lives of millions of people, a regime that denies basic rights, denies people's humanity and even their basic health, and yet its danger is far greater than all of that. Without exaggeration, the future of humanity and the planet hangs in the balance from what the Trump-Pence regime is doing. This is a regime that is playing roulette with nuclear weapons and that is denying science and climate change while discarding environmental regulation. Millions know and millions feel this horror. Who will end this nightmare? We will.
We will!
So, give me a second. But now it's your turn to answer the question. Who will end this nightmare?
We will!
It's only the determined struggle of millions of people acting together with courage and conviction that can drive this regime from power. And today, we are beginning a process of continuing protests that are going to demand this whole illegitimate regime be ousted from power. We are going to reach out to all sections of the people, spreading this everywhere, growing week by week and month by month. Listen to me. Week by week and month by month, we are not going to give up on this.
Excuse me, hello. Thank you.
We are going to build a movement that increases in size and determination. And we will not be deterred by naysayers, by cynics, by those who normalize, accommodate, or conciliate with a regime such as this. We are right to do this. The time is now. The hour is late. Our actions today across the country reflect the values and respect for humanity and the world that we want. And it's all in stark contrast to the hatred and the bigotry of the Trump-Pence regime and those who would defend it or stand to the side. And we have what we need to begin. Number one, we have an understanding of what it is we are fighting. This is not a normal presidency. This is a regime working every day to bring about an American fascism, manifest destiny, and American exceptionalism. A fascism wrapped in the Bible, taken literally, and the American flag, saturated with racism, misogyny, and xenophobia. Number two, we have a plan to bring forward the hundreds and the thousands and the hundreds of thousands and eventually the millions of people to create a situation where this regime is forced from power. And number three, we have a plan for the next 2 weeks that will be a springboard so that we can work to change the calculus from what may seem impossible today to become a movement that shakes the political ground. For 11 months, there has been one outrage after another from the Trump-Pence regime. Outrages that assault the conscience and threaten the world, and in its very extremeness, fills people with anguish and anger, and that is the basis for millions to act on our demand. Can anyone seriously deny that the Trump-Pence regime is working to radically eviscerate the rule of law, bludgeon the truth, demonize and terrorize immigrants, disabled people, refugees, Muslims, deny that this is a regime that stigmatizes LGBTQ people, that tramples Native American people's rights, that threatens Black and Latino youth with more police brutality and mass incarceration, that threatens the environment and even war, including with nukes. That this is a regime that despises women, from the sexual predator in chief to a vice president and much of a cabinet who would return women to the Middle Ages without rights to control their own destiny. We act now because fascism gets normalized as it gathers momentum. Fascism gets normalized as it gathers momentum. While group after group gets demonized, others get by. They go about their daily lives, and the unthinkable becomes routine, and the abnormal becomes normal. And then, it might take only a single incident, intentional or not, for the hammer to drop. My friends, history has shown that fascism must be stopped before it becomes too late. And for those of you, or those out there who have thought that letting Trump's generals run the show would bring adult supervision into the room, now you see that you have a president and a chief of staff who denies the horror of slavery and the necessity of a civil war to end it. And today, November 4th, as Donald Trump stomps into Asia, 7 billion people hold their breath for fear of what he might unleash or put in place while he's there. All of this should make clear, painfully clear, that we cannot wait. We cannot stand by. We must fight from where we are now. We must unite and struggle together to drive out this momentous regime. The hour is late, but the time is now. Now let's get down on the ground. Some people are going to tell you that we cannot do this, but they are wrong. This is possible. Last year, the South Korean people, starting right about now, took to the streets in demonstrations that took place at first every week, and then they mushroomed over a few months to politically engulf the whole country. It forced the removal of their president. They created a crisis of legitimacy, and on that basis, all kinds of previously hidden truths became revealed, and the people began to pour out. Cracks that had existed in the superstructure in society turned into deeper and deeper fissures, and more struggle erupted, and the legitimacy of the regime began to unravel. And faced with that situation, the powers that be in South Korea found the mechanism somehow to remove their duly elected president and call new elections by March. So understand, that was a smaller country, went from October to March. But some people are going to tell you that's South Korea, and the United States is not South Korea. Well, duh. In fact, the horrific danger and the horror of the Trump-Pence regime far exceeds that of the former presidents of South Korea, with therefore far greater potential to arouse broad and determined struggle. Look, our objective is nothing less than creating a movement from below to force the removal of the Trump-Pence regime. And starting today, we are calling on every person, every organization, every group to be part of beginning a movement of protest that gathers momentum, where people are out every day reaching out and protesting in waves. Every day there are new outrages from this regime and new divisions and conflicts among the powers that be. Republican senators are forced out of their party, but then they speak some little truth about the danger of Trump. Indictments, scandals, infighting. Our call to action, which everyone here should sign and get everybody else to sign, it says this, quote, "Our determination to persist and not back down will compel the whole world to take note. Every force and faction in the power structure would be forced to respond to our demand. The cracks and divisions among the powers that are already evident today will sharpen and widen. And as we draw more and more people forward to stand up, all of this could lead to a situation where this illegitimate regime is removed from power. Without it, it won't happen." How do we get where we need to go? How do we get there?